about him that he was reaching with the gospel message. Now there is a second implication here. Now sometimes in a good and generosity, the non-Christian may say to you, "Come with me so that we can do such and such." Or have such and such, do this. And we respond almost instinctively with, "No thanks, I don't do such and such, I'm a Christian." And you can hear that clanging, that bang, that iron curtain playing down. You had a tremendous opportunity there to witness. But in my opinion, you have done two very serious things when you have cut someone off. One, we have condemned that person out of hand as a pagan in a way that they won't really understand what you've done. Secondly, we have garbled the gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ, because we have suggested that inherent in being a Christian is not doing whatever it happened to be in that moment that they asked you to do. And you see what you've done. That's not what the Bible has done. That's not what Jesus Christ did. What we've done when we do that, we say, "Well, I don't do such and such. I don't do this because I'm a Christian." We have placed before someone this attitude that it is that there's a long list for those who call themselves Christians. All it is a list of do-nots. Don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. And then if you don't do all of those things, and maybe you do a few things over here, that makes you a Christian. And you think about all the churches that it looks like that. If you really, really are honest about them, that's what it is. It's a list of to-dos and to-don'ts, I guess is what you can call it. With non-Christians, we must look for that which we can honestly commend. And if we're alert, we can find it. And when a person invites us to do something, you might say, "No thanks, but let me know when you're going to do such and such. When you're going to do something else, let me know so I'll be a part of that. I can't do this, but I'll do that." Immediately make an alternative suggestion so that you don't seem to reject them and reject them as a friend. We do not need to be apologetic about it. If you invite a non-Christian to play chess, he doesn't hem and haw around about it. He says, "Well, no thanks, I don't play chess. I'm a non-Christian." They're not going to say that to you. "I don't play chess, I'm a non-Christian." He just says, "No thanks. Chess is not my game, but when you're going to play a game of ping pong, let me know." First then, we have to learn to match their moves. And this brings me to a twofold challenge. That of disarming our opposition and that of discovering opportunity. Now there is this challenge for us to disarm the opposition. Now many of the noblest concepts of the Sermon on the Mount are repeated in the epistles. Here's one of them. Look at verse 14 of our text this morning. It says, "Bless those who persecute you, bless and do not curse." Now the word for bless here is the same word that we use for eulogize. When we eulogize a person, we speak well of that person. Now Paul commands that this should be our habitual attitude toward those who ill-treat us. That we should speak well of those who treat us badly. Now this is to be the attitude that we should bear toward those that are opposed to us. We must disarm our opposition. Hatred is to be countered by love. Now some would maintain that Christianity has failed here, that we have not done this. It would be more correct to say that it has very rarely been tried. Most have not even tried to treat those who treat us unkindly in a kind fashion. D.L. Moody, in one of his sermons, he pictures the Lord Jesus after his resurrection giving directions to Peter. He says, "Go and find the man that had thrust his spear into my side and tell him there's a much quicker way to my heart. Find the man who crowned me with thorns and tell him I should like to give him a crown of life." It is a dramatic way of depicting the true spirit of Christianity. Did not Jesus practice what he preached? On the cross he prayed for them that despitefully used him. He opened the gates of paradise for the thief who moments before was pouring curses on his head. It was this that won completely the centurion in charge of the crucifixion. He said, "This was the Son of the living God." And thus we see the challenge of disarming opposition exemplified and gloriously successful on that skull-shaped hill of Golgotha. Christ's policy of blessing those that cursed him, one to himself that day, a Gentile and a Jew. Blessed first fruits of his cross. And there's also this challenge of discovering opportunity. We're to discover opportunity. Now, there are many experiences that we share in common with all men everywhere, and these can often be made legitimate points of contact by which we can build some bridges into the hearts, into the lives, into the homes of our unsaved neighbors, our unsaved associates, our unsaved friends and family. Look at verse 15. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Weep with those who weep. Now it is significant, surely, that the first of John's signs in his gospel were performed by the Lord at a wedding. Now the last was performed at a funeral. And the one was performed in life's gladdest moment. The other was performed in life's saddest hour. And the one, Jesus rejoiced with those who rejoiced. And the other, he wept with those who wept. And what about Paul, who wrote this? Rejoice with those who rejoice. Weep with those who weep. What did Paul do? Most gladly, therefore, in 1 Corinthians chapter 9, it says, therefore he says, will I spend and be spent for you? I made myself a slave. He says that I might win slaves unto the Jews. I became a Jew that I might gain Jews. To them that are under the law, as under the law, that I might gain them that are under the law. To them that are without the law, I became as without law, that I might gain them that are without law. To the weak I became as if I were weak, that I might gain the weak. I have made all things to all men, that I might by any means save some. Paul made every effort to discover opportunity to reach the lost world. Here he says, I become all things to all men, so that I might save some. Now let's be careful there for a moment. Now that doesn't mean that I become a drunkard so I can reach a drunkard. I become someone who's addicted to pornography to reach those with pornography. I become something else to reach someone. That's not what Paul is saying here. He's saying that I become all things, not in a sinful way, but in a way that I can reach them. I go to where they are to reach them for the cause of Christ. Now verse 16 speaks to minding our manners. Not only are we to show sympathy, to show understanding and friendship to the unsaved, we're to take good heed to our attitudes, avoiding both partiality and pride. Now Paul is clear in this verse, verse 16, the first part of that verse, that we're not to be partial. Paul says, be in agreement with one another. Be in agreement with one another. Now Paul's not asking for uniformity, but for harmony. We're to make allowances for each other. The Lord Jesus treated the woman at the well in John chapter 4 with the same consideration, the same courtesy, the same compassion that he treated the knightly and the polished Nicodemus of John chapter 3. He was as charitable to the dying thief as he was to his own mother. He was as patient with Judas as he was with John. The second part of this verse points out that we're not to be proud. 16, the second part of 16. Pride has no place in the Christian life. It says, do not be proud. Instead, associate with the humble. Do not be wise in your own estimation. Now we have